So, for those of us that might be a little familiar with the Jewish calendar and the Jewish community, we've made it through all of those holy days. And after you feel a little stronger, after we made it through into a new year, a sense of getting across the threshold of Yom Kippur, our sukkah has gone up and it has already been taken down, and now we start all over again. Bereshit. Bereshit bara Elohim. We know that Bereshit, the very first Torah portion in the book of Genesis, we know that lots of people would translate it as in the beginning, but it's not really an in the beginning. A lot of our sages and teachers said that if it was in the beginning, that means that there was a point when there was nothing. So rather, through some of our commentators, our translation in the Jewish community might be when God began to create. Up until that point, God was just hanging out. But there was a point when God would move creation forward. So we see when God would begin to create, and we start that reading all over again. We start with Genesis. And I kind of love the simple tradition. At the end of our last holy day for Simchat Torah, we end the reading of Deuteronomy, the 5th book of the Torah, and we start right again, the same night, not even a break. We were exhausted, but we went right into it again. And I kind of love that. Learning Torah never ends. Having a sense of living life with meaning and purpose never ends. We start again. And I think a lot of us will look at the readings of Genesis and this creation story, and we think of children's books, and we think of pretty colors, and God creating this world. And I want to suggest to you a couple of things for tonight. One is, I don't think that this is the history of how the world was created. I think it teaches us why the world was created. It tells us a little bit about what we're doing here. It's not our history. Now I know in Kentucky there's a museum that looks at this, and it built a whole museum around of the history of the creation story. It's a super interesting museum. And I think it goes further than that. It really helps us to see what we're doing here. So if we were to look at the very beginning, it says, when God began to create heaven and earth, the earth being unformed and void. Sometimes that unformed is translated as chaos. I think the world at first had chaos and void, which of course is a contradiction. But if we kept going, it says that there is darkness over the surface of the deep and a wind from God sweeping over the water. So there's water, there's substance, there's voids, and there's chaos. Verse 3, it says, God said, God spoke, let there be light. And there was light. There's no sun, there's no moon, but with God's word there was another kind of light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, the darkness God called night. There was evening, there was morning, a first day. It's kind of a simple story, and yet I think it's really quite complicated. There's light, there's darkness, there's void, there's chaos. There's no other creation stuff yet. Everything is unformed. God spoke, and something incredible happened. There was light. Something we so often take for granted. But what we see here, and starts to unfold over the next few days, is that God brings order to the chaos and to the void. I think the world has chaos embedded in it. Part of all of this amazing creation, even though after day comes night, and night comes day, there's seasons, there's incredible order, but still we know that we encounter real chaos sometimes. In the very beginning of creation, this chaos is part of the deep aspects of creation itself. A little bit later, we're going to see another gift. In addition to the gift of ordering and chaos, there's also something about being created in God's tselem. Now, a lot of people will translate the word tselem as God's image, but I don't think it's a great translation because God doesn't have a face. There's no pudim. God is more than that. So what's up with the image? I often will think that our ancestors believed that maybe we're a reflection of God. So if you see something in a mirror, it kind of bounces back. So God sends something and it bounces back. That doesn't really make sense. Maybe it's not a reflection. I really like to think of it as a refraction. That God's qualities travel through the air and space and existence, and then it kind of shifts a little bit. I think those qualities that reach us, that come from God, I think they're refracted, and it exists inside of us. And those qualities are going to be compassion and the ability to love. It'll be kindness. It'll be a sense of loyalty. Maybe even grace. Unconditional love. All of these things, I think, actually come from God and help us all of the time respond to the chaos that's in the world. Because if we are receiving this image thing, this tselem, these qualities of God, it's not that God has physical attributes. It has to be the qualities of goodness and compassion and grace. And if we have that godliness, well then what do we do with it? Is it just for us? Is it supposed to help us feel warm and fuzzy? Well, that can't be it either. I think it has to kind of keep being paid out there and keep moving forward. I think that our previous generations of rabbis were onto something when they start to talk about this tselem, this image, these qualities that we have being a part of us and what we should do with it. I think they're onto something, especially from some of our Hasidic teachers. So a few hundred years ago, there's a particular teacher who says the Torah begins with the word Bereshit, like in our Torah portion for this particular Shabbat. It starts with the word Bereshit, which can be understood to say God created the world for the sake of the beginning. For the sake of beginning. Over and over and over again. All our Creator asks of us is that we make a new beginning in the right direction. We never have to be perfect. We never have to get it right always. We just have to be thoughtful in our beginnings. For me, that would take a lot of pressure off. Not needing to be perfect. That I have beginning after beginning after beginning that I get to embrace. I think that's an incredible idea. We don't need to get it right, but we have to journey forward. There's another teacher, another Hasidic teacher. Reb Bunam would say God created a beginning. A beginning. And the universe is always going to be incomplete, and it's always going to be beginning. Unlike a vessel, a container, one that somebody works at, creates, finishes, puts it aside. Creation requires continuous labor and attention. The vessel, a vase, a container, you make it and it ends. But really, creation is something that is always being renewed. In the morning prayers, in our Yotzer Or prayer, there's a line and it says, in your goodness you renew creation each and every day. Uv'tavo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. I think it's even more than that. It's not that God creates creation every day or renews creation every day. It's every day, it's every hour, it's every second, it's every moment. Less than a second, there is a renewal of creation. So that Bereshit story, the 6 days of God creating and then the 7th day God stopping, and went on the couch and watched Law and Order, that, oh hello, this rabbit comes every Shabbos. All the time. I'm sorry, I embarrassed you. I have no idea what I was saying. If they're like, all right, no more jokes. If we have these encounters of renewing creation all of the time, and we're a part of that tapestry, think about the potential of beginning again. You know, I think COVID has exhausted us. It's exhausted me. And it's not over. And we're outside in the dark in a tent when it's cold out. And some of you are from Florida. We get to begin again all the time. But we need a little strength in order to do that. We need a little bit of love and grace and compassion in order to do that and to help others do it too. So if we're created in God's image, and this world is being created over and over and over again every millisecond, and there is that power, and we know that there's chaos like COVID, well, our job to be godly with all of those attributes is to respond to the chaos, make some more order again, and make sure that people are warm and have a place to sleep and are taken care of and have insurance and have enough food so that they can feed their families. And these rabbits that are circling us don't have to worry about the smoke in the air from those fires that are overwhelming us in this part of the country. There's so much we can do, and all we need to do really is begin again. It's a new year. We have been given, every single human being has been given a divine gift of deserving dignity. And if we can take our godliness and begin again, even if we've missed the mark in the past, we can do incredible, amazing, and beautiful things that can do nothing less than change our lives and change our world for the better. B'Tselem Elohim, it says. That's how we're created. There's some sort of divinity within us. So we have some divine potentiality to also be creators and renewers and rebuilders. Now I know the rabbis will always say, just walk in God's ways. I wish it was that simple. It's not so easy. Because there's always things coming at us. There's always another task. There's always another chore. And I'm not always sure, and I'm not always thinking about God's ways. Well, I hope that we can perhaps consider how we can be empowered to begin again. To make a beginning that is worthy of God's blessing. And if we missed it yesterday, we have today. We have tomorrow. And as God spoke, and there was light, well, how powerful can our words be? What can we do, and who can we impact with a simple word? So let's reclaim some of those words and say that hatred and bigotry and racism and anti-Semitism and all of those other